Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Not me. No way. Things are going great. Who could ever complain after such a great weekend? We're having a lot of fun. Let's see what folks are saying in the chat. It's a little sunny in here, but I'll be able to read them. Just angle it a little differently. Welcome back, everyone. Hope your weekends went well. Indeed, my weekend went great. CD Van. It was too quick, Lance. Escape the Matrix, yo Chatelet. And I agree with CB Van. It was a quick weekend. C. Berger says, good morning. Today we're going to learn why money makes mental illness. You sure are, CB. C. Berger. We're going to talk all about it. Personally, I blame the Benjamins. It's their fault, those stupid Benjamins. Therefore, we are buried with him by baptism into death. Like as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so, why am I reading so poorly? Even so, we also should walk in the newness of life. Romans 6:4, thank you for that, Chef Zero. FYI, smashing that like definitely indicates you do not have mental illness. Indeed, liking equals mental health. It's good for your mental health. Do it. Lance 2002, giving up the old cheers. No, what's happening? Let me know if I'm coming through correctly, guys. Good morning, Bampians. Indeed, I blame the doctors telling us that mental health is based on brain health, not gut health. That's a good point, Escape the Matrix. I'm not talking too much about gut health this morning, but you're right to indicate it. Serious 34,000 Bitcoin anyway. Happy Monday, Great Awakening gang. Incredible. Oh, we have another huge purchase of the Bitcoin from Michael Saylor, buying it all up. None left for us. Just us first being experts, Matrix, indeed. Good morning, Count and crew. Good morning, gang. Are we going to start seeing some arrests this week? Maybe. There's a few other things. I continue to predict that arrests don't really happen time, but that's me. You never know. You might get some earlier stuff. But I think it's a post-Golden Age 250th celebration over the summer affair. But I could be wrong. To emulate Sailor, I will smash by 34,000 sats, says Matt Fry. Very good idea. You're in a no black pill space, says T-Dog. Yo. We don't do any black pilling around here. Laptop mic and not boom mic. Let me see. Yeah, you're right. Thank you for helping me, everybody. Go, guys. I appreciate it. Let me make sure I have the new mic on now and you're hearing it better. I'm still a little sick, so that's what's going on. Thank you for that, though, JJ Fox. I appreciate it. Suntech definitely operational in Montreal as in Calgary. It sure is. It's not that great. We're not mega sunshiny today. A huge snowstorm this morning. I got up and I thought it was some kind of a mist, and I said, it's too cold today to be mist. And then I looked closely, and it was nothing but a huge snow flurry. I couldn't even see across the way here. It was just snow blanket everywhere. Like I said, I thought it was fog or something at first, and I said, fog doesn't come out at 0 Celsius. You don't get fog in the low 30s to high 20s, which is what it was when I woke up. And sure enough, as I look closely, it was snow. Morning, all. Been hearing a bunch of Ron Paul gold ETF ads lately. So retarded. We got Rand Paul in the notes today, so we'll talk about that later. All right, folks. Indeed, we have a major sunrise on our hands, and Bitcoin running at 75,000. Let me make sure that's accurate. Yes, 75,000 US trash tokens as of this morning. We're doing great. Let's have a coffee. Talk about what's new. There we go. Got the coffee. Let me just check one thing here to make sure my connection is going the way I wanted. Some problems. Video output. Should be good. We should be good. What's up, Double B? How's it going? All right, so we got the coffee. I'm going to take one more sip, and then we're going to look into what's going on in the world of NPCs this morning. It's not going great. It's not going great. All right, here we go. Here we go. Let's find out how NPC life is working out today. I think I'll do this and then that, and then this should work. Should work. Let's see how it works. Indeed. Uh-oh. Freedom of Information documents suggest plant-based milk facility linked to deadly outbreak was haven for listeria. No way. No way, guys. Plant-based milk haven for listeria. I'm so shocked. It's such a shocking turn of events. How could this be? How can it be? But it's true. We get this out of Florida as we're talking about spring. Guys, all of you guys in Florida, bad news. Really bad news. Experts say Florida's springs, notorious for springs in Florida. Those in Florida, you know. When you think of Florida, don't you think of spring? Okay, what's going on with this computer? Is it lagging for you guys? Because I'm seeing a lag. Let me know if it's lagging for you guys. I have to figure some stuff out here. I don't understand why it's happening this way. Let me know if it's done any video pausing lags, please. Yeah, a little bit. Lagging a bit. Yeah, a bit of a lag. I thought so. Okay. Just give me a second. I will see what I can shut down. I think it's just a... With that, let me get a few of these things out the way. That should be good. That should have saved us a bunch of CPU. There we go. All right. So, guys, Florida's springs, you're not going to believe it. They're under threat. Here's what you should know. It's Earth Day, guys, and we're not going to have spring in Florida. North Florida's springs have suffered the consequences of residential and agricultural development for decades, guys. We're not going to get spring anymore in Florida. The spring's gone in Florida. We get this. If it's not just there, I got worse news for you guys. Now, where's this one? Why did this disappear? I'm going to get this one back because it's high quality. I don't know why it disappeared. Here we go. Oh, it just keeps disappearing. Why the heck? Oh, there we go. No, I found it. So while we got this incredible breaking news about Florida not having its springs, we get this. Experts warn climate change will make parts of Israel uninhabitable for decades. Guys, as extreme weather events intensify in Israel, experts predict that rising temperatures and dust storms will make regions like the Jordan Valley and southern Arava unlivable by the end of the century. Guys, you're not going to be able to live in Israel anymore. There'll be no springs in Florida, and Israel going to get the climate change action. It gets getting worse, guys. Climate change could make humidity-driven heat risks more dangerous. Guys, more dangerous. We're going to have more danger from the humidity-driven heat risks. That is what's coming. That's what's coming. Then I get this one here. Just as you've heard about Florida and what's going to happen to Israel in 80 years, we get this. Scientists say Earth's warming could set off wide disruptions. A continuing rise in average global sea level, which is likely to amount to more than 1.5 feet by the year 2100.
This, say scientists, would inundate parts of many heavily populated river deltas and the cities on them, making them uninhabitable, and would destroy many beaches around the world at the most likely rate of rise. Some experts say most of the beaches on the east coast of the United States would be gone in 25 years. 25 years. Oh, wait a minute. This was written in 1995. What happened? What's going on? 25 years ago, but we only have 25 years, but also Israel has nothing left because it's 25 years ago and they also have beaches. What is going on here? Humidity, Israel, everything falling apart. We get this. Just as you're reading this article from 1995 that didn't predict anything 30 years ago, we get this. Opinion, don't blame that windshield on climate change. It's a hoax. This comes from Wisconsin. The federal government we have these days will deny it, but all that violent weather that had Wisconsin scurrying to their basements most of last week is no doubt being helped by the warming of the earth. We can expect more hailstorms, strong winds, and heavy precipitation throughout the Midwest in coming years. They've never known that in the Midwest. Midwest is notoriously boring weather, right? It's just always the same. It's just boring. It doesn't even change. They barely have seasons in Wisconsin and Chicago. Barely. The UW Wisconsin State Climatology Office has long reported that Wisconsin's climate is warmer and wetter than it used to be, which fuels more extreme temperature and precipitation levels. But Trump said it's a con. But the man who is president of the United States and the people has appointed critical positions all claim it's all a hoax, or in Donald Trump's words, the greatest con job in history. Try telling that to folks who are getting their car windows replaced or paying to have trees removed from their roofs of their houses. Trump's appointee, he could have stopped that. If Trump would have just passed a law, you'd have had no trees on people's roofs. That'd be over. They'd know it's illegal. They'd stop. But no, they don't. Nevertheless, Besant contends that climate change is a belief of the elite, whatever that means. Yes, the climate does change, Besant admitted at a World Bank event last week, but added, we're going through cycles, and I believe that it's very difficult to deconstruct the reasons around why climate changes. Leading scientists have rejected claims like Besant's. The New York Times pointed out, one article noted that natural factors like the sun, volcanic eruptions, and orbital cycles would be cooling the earth if not for human activity. Instead, about 200 years ago, after the start of the Industrial Revolution, the direction of global temperatures reversed and began rapidly warming. As you've heard, brace yourselves, everyone. We got troubles. We get this, guys. Climate change is making outdoors challenging for people with asthma. She is challenged, this woman, by the outdoors. It's very challenging for her because of her asthma, but I'm not going to leave you guys in a lurch this morning, right? I'm giving you all this bad news. Florida's screwed. The beaches are going to close. Who's going to live in Israel? It's going to be too hot, right? I got all this bad news. Wisconsin totally screwed. But thankfully, we have new answers on the horizon. Here it is. Ancient Poo offers insight into how seabirds will fare as climate warms. Guys, just when I was worried, we'd looked at all the mollusks, we'd looked at all the shells, we'd looked at all the tree rings. No, there's new data, new information is coming to light on how to survive climate change. All you got to do is look for the ancient bird shit. And then if you look into the ancient bird shit, you go and you cut it and then you dissect it, and then you put it under a microscope, and then you count the molecules, and then you look really closely, and then you realize the shit was in the shade, or it wasn't, it was in the sun, and then it baked, and then you know what the weather was like when the bird was shitting, and then you know how the bird survived, and then you can copy the bird. The answers are in the bird poo, everyone. You just need to look at the bird poo. That's how you know if you're going to survive or not. All right. You're going to get insight. You're going to get the insight you need. You look into the bird poo and then you can survive. Researchers studying historic wind patterns on one of Earth's greatest seabird breeding grounds. Found an 8,000-year-old guano archive. It's an archive of data. People say, how do we know what the weather was like 450 million years ago? It's in the bird shit. Experts are doing it right now. This is why you have to listen to the experts. You think you can go look at a bunch of bird shit and find out what was going on 8,000 years ago? No, you can't. You got to be a scientist to do that. And now they know how the birds did with the changing weather. Now they know. They looked at their shit. They figured it out. They know what they thought. You're out there linking the gut brain health, right? In the chat. I heard you talking about the gut brain health, right? This is it. This is the gut brain health right here. Now you know, everyone. Now you know. If it wasn't for this bird shit, we would have no clue. We'd be totally lost. This is a great one, too. We get this one from the New York Times. The New York Times with a story on Hassan Piker, a progressive mind in a body made for the manosphere. Hassan Piker pumps irons, likes weapons, and wears pearls. His brand of masculinity has won him many fans online, and he has been a useful vehicle for politics. There you go, guys. Perfect article from the New York Times. Hassan Piker. Look, there's the dog he electrocutes sometimes. A lot of people love him for that. Good for him. He's so big, so hot right now. This is what we get from The Atlantic. Kash Patel's colleagues are alarmed by what they described as erratic behavior and excessive drinking. We got Kash Patel. He's an alcoholic, according to Sarah Fitzpatrick. She spoke with more than 24 people with knowledge of his conduct, some of whom described it as a national security vulnerability. He's a drunk. We saw him in the hockey videos. Oh, this is sad, guys. They're not doing great. We get this one from the New York Post. Stormy Daniels looks dramatically different in new photos as disgraced ex-attorney Michael Avenatti moves to a halfway house. This was them about 10 years ago, and now here they are. I'm not taking any joy in their downfall. No way. Can't do that. We got to just pray for them, everyone. Pray for them. Hopefully it gets better for them. We get this, our last NPC news story of the day. We get this from Pope Leo. We hope he stays in the news. He's perfect. Fortune magazine says Pope Leo XIV sounded the alarm over the growing wealth inequality between CEOs and workers. And he singled out Elon Musk's path to trillionaire status. Guys, can you believe it? In some parts of the world, CEOs make more than the workers. Can you believe that? Now, I know the Pope makes the same as any Catholic pastor or whatever they call them, priest in every church, right? They all make the same, right? There's no hierarchy of payment in the Catholic Church. They're all the same, right? It's all the same. It's all the same, Leo. It's the same. So indeed, yeah, shocking news, everyone. We needed the Pope to remind us that there is inequality between CEOs and workers. It's going to take me a while to adjust to this news, because if we didn't have the Pope telling the truth like this, who would have known? Who would have known that this was a thing even, right? That CEOs make so much more than the employees? My goodness. Crazy. All right, let's move on to the news of the day. 1 second. Gotta check something. And I gotta cough. Just 1 second, everyone. Getting better. All right, here's what we got. Yesterday, or I guess over the weekend, the blockade had a bit of an issue. And here's what Trump said today. An Iranian flag cargo ship named Tuska, nearly 900 feet long and weighing almost as much as an aircraft carrier, tried to get past our naval blockade, and it did not go well for them. The U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Spruance intercepted the Tuska in the Gulf of Oman and gave them fair warning to stop. The Iranian crew refused to listen, so our Navy ships stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in the engine room. Right now, U.S. Marines have custody of the vessel. The Tuska is under U.S. Treasury sanctions because of their prior history with illegal activity. So this is one of the dark fleet. We have full custody of the ship and are seeing what's on board, said President Trump. So some people saying this threatens the ceasefire. I don't think so. We'll talk about that in a minute. But here's what we know. Here was a video of the seizure, the moment it happened. Watch the moment the U.S. Marines stormed a Iranian flag ship. They abseiled from a helicopter as they seized control of the Tuska cargo ship in the Gulf of Oman. So this is the Marines actually getting control and possession of the boat. Sal Mercogliano has a pretty good breakdown of exactly what happened in this little altercation. Here he says the statement from SEMCON is very enlightening. Instead of conducting a boarding, USS Spruance warned Tuska for 6 hours that it was in violation of the blockade. It is not clear if the ship was supposed to divert or stop to be boarded. The ship continued toward Iran and crossed the blockade line from the Arabian Sea to the Gulf of Oman. When Tuska refused to comply, Spruance moved off from the ship, sent a warning to abandon the engine room, and then proceeded to fire with 5-inch MK-45. The gunfire either disabled the machinery or the crew brought the ship to a stop. Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit then conducted a boarding and seized the ship. It is surprising to see that the ship was fired upon and not boarded via helicopters, as this was done against Venezuelan tankers earlier this year. It is unclear what damage was inflicted. So the question just here, why didn't they just board immediately? Why did they disable the ship? I'm not sure. Some answer must lie in that they have the tugging capacity, or that they can clear the ship after, so that it wasn't a big problem that it happened this way. But indeed, here, people saying that the war and what's going on is going to pop off again. Probably not. Here's Harold Finch. I think this is more accurate. First observation, there'll be no deal. The ceasefire will end and the war will recommence. Second observation, the U.S. has been flooding the theater with reinforcements, resupplies, and performing maintenance on air assets nonstop and rearming warships. The force is ready and it's larger than it's ever been. Third observation, every key player left in the regime surfaced from their hide holes and safe houses during this ceasefire. The regime negotiation team sent to stall America. The IRGC thugs who showed up in Islamabad to stop the Iranian regime delegation from making any deals. The mid-level staffers are going between the IRGC thug leadership and the IRGC cannon fodder, still shooting at the ships. All of them broke cover and came back up on the grid. So some people saying that's the point of what just happened, that they're getting flushed out. From that point on, they were visible to the human intelligence networks watching them, the persistent ISR assets watching 24/7, and indeed 7 days a week without pause, spy satellite stealth and non-stealth drones, manned reconnaissance aircraft. From the moment this ceasefire started, everyone who is a key player in Iran's continued resistance came back on the grid and have been surveilled ever since. So apparently there is a timer on how much mischief can go on as the ceasefire continues. The intelligence mosaic is fully fleshed out and these targets are being tracked in real time. And the strike plans created with the help of AI are already set and planned. When the ceasefire ends, the strikes will begin with such rapid speed and precision that it will be much more savage and fearsome than the first round. Fourth observation, Iran received drones, SAM missiles, systems, and radar intelligence from China during this ceasefire. And this is still ongoing. This is what's driving the remnants of the IRGC to continue to fight in this war. They do not fully comprehend what is set to take place or how completely unable to counter it or survive it they are. That's partly due to history, partly due to institutional arrogance of IRGC, and partly, and most importantly, because China and Russia simply do not understand our full capabilities. Now, not sure if that's really true, but they're saying all this is happening. But I thought Tom Luongo had a better way of explaining this, saying, excellent analysis. Now, consider that both Russia and China know the IRGC is dead and have propped them up to make them think they have a chance before they are wiped out. So is this a way to flush them out on the part of China and Russia? Maybe. Sounds like it makes sense, because that puts to bed the threat forever and guts the possibility of any restarting of hostilities, thus neutering the European/London interests who created this intolerable situation in the first place. Neutering European and British aggression is a strategic Chinese and Russian goal. So this falls again into our frame that the war that Trump is actually prosecuting in Iran doesn't really have much to do. I know a lot of people said it's all about China. A lot of people have said it's all about making sure China is screwed in the next iteration of their escalating great powers fight with America. Maybe that's an added benefit for the United States, but again, all the oil that America has been letting them receive. Remember that America has not stopped really the Iranian side of the Strait of Hormuz. They were stopping the Gulf Coast side that would normally send ships to Europe to have that oil head to those markets. So what we saw from the early days, the blockade now is closing the Iranian side, so it's different. That's the Trump blockade, not the blockade that Iran was trying to prosecute in the first weeks of the war, which really only affected European supply. America let the supply continue to China and let traffic continue on through that area. That's why we can see, of course, that the divisions inside of the Iranian military was done by design, right? We've seen that by design, but you can see here already the UK media forces having to admit this and doing so in their typical schizophrenic way. Deep divisions in the Iranian regime could thwart a truce with America if peace talks resumes. Of course, press 5 minutes ago, killing Iranian regime members has only made the regime stronger. Here's why that's bad for Trump. And now it's the Iranian regime has collapsed to the point where no deal is enforceable. Here's why that's bad for Trump. See the game. And that's how you can tell these folks are indeed the target. And again, go back. Here's Luke Groman again trying to read some failure of America into this. If I was a U.S. oil exec witnessing how Hormuz's closure for 7 weeks has left U.S. oil prices far below global prices, while EP stocks have underperformed SPX, blah, 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 blah. The CapEx is down, and it's all a big problem. And Tom Luongo says, with OPEC production off 25% and a chance of historic market share gains at prices 40% higher than 6 weeks ago, this is supposed to be good business practice. That's why accountants are not CEO material. And that's why CEOs get paid more than employees and their accountants. And so here's the real way, I think, to continue to talk about what Iran has actually caused in the world. Josh Wolf here saying, whether you hate Trump or love him, you can see him as a useful instrument of misdirection or an accidental agent of chaos. It doesn't matter, but you must appreciate the strategists in the White House, Treasury, State, and Department of War orchestrating a long game where America wins. And Tanvi Ratna's analysis continues to be pretty much the best in the world about all the different implications to what America is doing. Here saying, while the world fixated on Hormuz, the U.S. has quietly locked power projection over 4 critical choke point straits: Panama, Hormuz, Malacca, Gibraltar, orchestrated within a mere 15 months of taking office. This is a massive realignment with global repercussions. I said long ago that Iran is not a mere node, but the catalyst precipitating resets across theaters far beyond the Middle East. 3 of the 4 straits reordered within days of each other, proving the framework the U.S. ran a different playbook for each. These choke points carry 40% of global trade and 20% of oil across 4 regions: Panama for the Americas, Gibraltar for Europe, Hormuz, Asia and the Middle East, Malacca and just Asia. Once overlooked or contested, they're now central to the new order under Trump. Panama Canal, this was secured in January 2026, a month before Operation Epic Fury began near Hormuz. In January 2025, Trump began the pressure campaign, calling Chinese terminal control of by Hong Kong-based CK Hutchinson unacceptable. Here, Panama's 2025 controller audit exposed irregularities in the Hong Kong contract. January 2026, their Supreme Court ruled the Hong Kong contract unconstitutional. February 2026, terminals shifted out of Chinese hands to Maersk, BlackRock, and Italian control. No U.S. troops, no shots fired. Strait of Hormuz, the one everyone is watching, the kinetic strategy, Operation Epic Fury degrades Iranian defenses and logistics. We are at April 2026 with the blockade and negotiations in process, but U.S. president still gets normalized, even welcomed by the Gulf countries. Strait of Malacca, Just this week, momentum hits Southeast Asia, the strait most critical for China, 80% of China's oil imports, 40% of global trade. Indonesia sits directly on the strait. April 13th, 2026, Hexeth signed the Major Defense Cooperation Partnership with Indonesia and the Pentagon. We covered that last week. Core win, blanket U.S. military aircraft overflight rights across Indonesian airspace. No need for case-by-case approvals to fly over, just a notification. The pact gives U.S. continuous surveillance and rapid response positioning with 0 new bases. And this one here is important. Strait of Gibraltar. This happened last week. Key African-European artery gets locked. 2 days later, Morocco controls the southern shore, the Atlantic Mediterranean Gateway. April 16th, 2026, U.S. and Morocco sign the 2026 to 2036 Defense Cooperation Roadmap at the Pentagon. Covers NATO-level weapons, joint training, intel, cyber, counterterrorism, and unprecedented operational integration. Runs for a full decade, no new bases needed. And that is important, as I'll talk about Spain in a few minutes. And this does give America negotiating leverage with Spain and optionality. Final 3 moves in the last week while everyone watched Hormuz. Panama, pressure plus courts. Hormuz, strikes plus targeted blockade. Malacca, rapid pact plus blanket overflights. Gibraltar, decade-long alliance deepening. The contested lanes are now U.S. strategic advantages. So they're not going to need Spain or the UK for Gibraltar anymore. They have Morocco, and that's an important realignment. And here's the deal with Morocco. More by Tanvi on that. Spain gave the stiffest opposition with NATO to supporting Operation Epic Fury. Trump has already begun canceling Spain, but you might have missed the resounding clawback the U.S. military already dealt Spain just yesterday. U.S. defense deal with Morocco is really where this all lies, and why Trump, again, has that leverage and why he's got this incredible negotiating power. And of course, as we've been framing from the beginning, that it has everything to do with how this node relates to a resetting of everything else around the world. It has a reset of NATO, a reset of Israel, a reset of foreign banking, UK control, Promethean action, of course, always on top of this. And they came out with another great video this week highlighting exactly what's going on. I'm going to start it over to make sure we have the correct audio sharing because we like the audio. So here's the video from Promethean action.
Again, this deal is not tied in any way to Lebanon, but we will make Lebanon great again. Now let's Israel. And this is the part that makes the Tucker-Candace analysis collapse entirely. They looked at Trump bombing Iran and said he's doing Netanyahu's bidding. Well, here's what that misses. Netanyahu needed Iran. A permanent Iranian threat was the justification for a permanent emergency government. It kept the secular Palestinian Authority weak, it kept the two-state solution buried, and it kept Likud in power. Before October 7th, Netanyahu's government actually funded Hamas through Qatar, precisely because they didn't want a governing secular Palestinian partner. They wanted to keep the threat alive and keep the game in play. Trump did not do Netanyahu's bidding. He took Netanyahu's leverage away. Those are opposite things. Now, if you're tired of being fed clickbait propaganda about Trump's intentions, you need to subscribe to Promethean Action's free newsletter. We've been showing our subscribers the big picture, the strategic battle unfolding between Donald Trump's American Republic and the forces of empire. The link is in the description. And now London is starting to sweat. So here's what nobody is connecting. Bessent didn't just warn Exchequer Chancellor Reeves about Iran. He warned her about money, London's money, and the architecture behind it. The president himself named it back on April 11th in a Truth Social in all caps, world extortion. That's not rhetoric, that's a precise description of how the City of London has run the global financial system for over a century, and Bessent is now systematically dismantling it. Here's how the architecture works. Think about what London actually prices. The global gold fix and other metals through the London Metal Exchange and the ICE, the Intercontinental Exchange. The price of oil through the Brent crude benchmark since 1988. Shipping rates on every barrel of oil that moved through the strait, determined by Lloyd's war risk premiums. And every regional crisis sent traders to London and allowed them to manipulate prices. Managed conflict wasn't just a geopolitical tool, it was a revenue stream. Trump called it world extortion. He's right. Now, a lot of people have been talking about how Trump's moves have busted up the Lloyd's racket by offering U.S. insurance on shipping and by taking the straight choke point out of play. But before that, even bigger moves were going on that most people didn't notice. Vivify Mariposa pulls the curtain back in an important post entitled "The System That Owns You, How It Was Built, and Why It's Breaking." She describes how Trump's tariff offensive has caused a dramatic shift in the economic balance of power. Because of Trump's moves, physical gold has been moving from London vaults to New York. Copper pricing is migrating from the London Metal Exchange to American markets. And London's own exchange has publicly conceded that the shift is permanent. Now, Mariposa concludes by saying, the pricing authority is moving, gold to American vaults, copper to COMEX, LNG contracts referencing American benchmarks. London is not being replaced by Qatar. London is being bypassed by New York. And the people who know it best just gathered at the London Defense Conference, right in London, right in the middle of Trump's offensive. One of them was Lord William Hague. He was the UK Foreign Secretary from 2010 to 2014, the man who helped negotiate the Iran nuclear conflict that Trump just dismantled. And after leaving government, he became chair of ICE Futures Europe, the London Commodities Exchange, which is losing its position to American markets. And he also moderated the conference, mourning the collapse of the transatlantic order. In essence, he gave the eulogy. One man, three threads of the same story. And the rest of the conference tells it all. Look at previous London defense.
And so when you look at this architecture and plumbing getting torn out by Trump, and you start to realize that China isolating them, maybe, but the full extent of the global reset that comes with this, the full recalibration of all of these institutions, I think in the end was completely directed at this London empire. That is the main obstacle that seems to be affected the most. You're already seeing here the National Review, Britain is dying under Keir Starmer. Ari Fleischer says, Charles Krauthammer famously said that decline is a choice and the British have chosen it. These trends didn't begin with the Starmer government, but they have accelerated under its hapless leadership. Britain is indeed dying under this situation. And you can see more from this same architecture of deceit. Canada in the same boat, of course. Canada has a 30% chance of entering recession. Former bank of governor. so former governor of bank predicts. Way to go, CTV. Bank of Governor, indeed. Who wrote this? Canada has 30% chance of entering a recession, and it wasn't a accident that the other person that was criticized this very weekend in person about these financial flows wasn't just the Rachel Reeves from the UK. It was also the Canadian counterpart, Mr. Champagne. And Treasury Secretary was very frank with him. Look at this pathetic picture with his stupid face. So our favorite gay took this little guy aside and said the following: I met with Canadian Minister of Finance and National Revenue, Champagne, to discuss ongoing economic cooperation between the United States and Canada. We discussed the conflict with Iran, energy markets, and ways to build on progress made on our critical minerals collaboration. I also encourage Canada to continue to assist with the Trump administration's efforts to tackle drug trafficking related illicit financing. So while other countries didn't get the riot act read to them on financial flows, Canada and the UK did. And that's a major, major difference, because it looks like that is the actual target. Now, that predicts we're going to have more US-America conflict, particularly on this money laundering question, because that continues to be America's number one enemy. And Iran isn't really the war that it's cracked up to be in that way. That's why you're seeing all of these other conflicts starting to rise up to the level of concern for the United States, and why you're starting to see all of these, let's call them action reaction stories. Let me find, I had one more that I wanted to put in here before I did this, but I think I'm going to have to go and find it elsewhere. Just give me a second here, folks. There's one other story I wanted in the mix, and I think I forgot to put the notes in. And it kind of predicts, I think, why we can tell. It predicts what's going on in Canada, and we're going to see more of it. There it is. So with all that in mind, you had Joe Kent come out and still try to make this argument that America has one last chance to get out of this war, right? POTUS is laying out two courses of action: a negotiated settlement or a major escalation. There's a third option. So he's giving, remember, I've given you the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good would be, okay, they have an uprising in Iran and we have credible people to deal with, and there's a change of leadership and everyone goes home happy. The bad was Venezuela, that America funds pretty much what we're getting, which is the mullahs without the power of the IRGC, but that they're going to basically be able to continue on. And then the ugly was we just peace out and say fuck off. So Joe Kent is arguing for the ugly here and says all the following: the region's not ours to fix. I agree with that. Negotiated settlement unlikely to work. Major escalation. We're going to get fucked by the Iranians somehow. If POTUS opts to strike the civilian infrastructure, declare victory, and then leave, we will only further erode our standing in the world, the petrodollar, and eventually our status as the world's reserve currency holder. We need to get out now. So the whole point that you end up getting Joe Kent underlining here is that we have to uphold the global financial system as it is, right? The petrodollar, everything going the way it is. Double down on failure, avoid the sunken cost trap, leave now, and put America's interests first. Maybe, but this fella here, David Clements, has been just great lately, and he comes up with the following framework: fidelity to the petrodollar and the bankers behind it needs to be broken. There's a fourth option that Trump is pursuing: winning. And that's what I'm seeing. I don't think Joe Kent's case here for keeping the petrodollar, don't upset everyone because things are going so great, Joe. They're not really going that great around the world. And so what this predicts is that indeed Trump is going to keep his eye on these British bankers, everything that's been making the system function the way it has been. And indeed, that's why you see Scott Bessent coming out and attacking Carney personally. So that led to Carney himself making a speech last night. So Carney now upping the ante because the actual fight, and that's why you're seeing the rhetoric change. The actual fight, of course, is between this old system born out of the City of London, as well as what Trump is trying to do to counter it. So here, Bessent attacking Carney yesterday, just like he's attacking these British folks. I'm going to restart it to make sure the audio comes through correctly. But here's Scott Bessent saying that Mark Carney doesn't have a blind trust. There's no such thing. And that, of course, everything he's doing is trading for his own portfolio first. He's looting.
So what are they?
Look, Stephanie, I follow the rules of the Ethics Commissioner.
With Canadians not being aware of what potential conflicts of interest you sought to avoid.
What possible conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance.
There's no possible conflict of interest in your assets. It's very difficult to believe.
Look inside yourself, Rosemary.
A lot of people did very well in the stock market, I assume, and I assume that you probably were one of them, and good for you.
That would be an incorrect assumption because I had to sell all my stocks to become Treasury Secretary.
You sold them all?
Had
Really?
to, yes.
But you have a blind trust, I would imagine.
There's no such thing as a blind trust.
So what are they?
And now you can see some of these conflicts coming out, right? We get Harold Lutnick going crazy on Canada as well. Here's further evidence of this attack and conflict.
Is President Trump committed to extending the USMCA ahead of the July deadline?
I think he thinks it's a bad deal, right? He thinks making Mexico and Canada be treated economically like Georgia and Alabama without them actually being committed.
Do you think it might lapse?
Is a bad trade.
The former.
I think it needs to be reconsidered and reimagined correctly. There are parts of Mexico that are fundamental to us. There are parts of Canada, you know, their energy and other things that are important to us. But the concept of taking an auto plant out of Ohio and Michigan and putting it in Mexico to break the union and to break our people is nuts. It was a bad industrial policy. It harmed America. President Trump is going to fix it. He's bringing it back. You're going to see it get brought back. And I think it needs to be reimagined and needs to be readdressed. There's plenty of good in it, but there's a huge amount of bad in it and needs to be reconsidered for the benefit of America.
The former top Canadian trade negotiator said the other day that time is on.
Christopher Friedland, who's like the worst.
No, a guy. I'm blanking on his name here, but the time is on our side because the pressures on the U.S. are only going to increase over time. Basically, you guys are in political trouble. The longer they wait, the better a deal you're going to have to do.
Good for them. That is like the worst strategy I've ever heard. They suck. Look. We are a $30 trillion economy, right? We are the consumer of the world, okay? Carney has a problem with us. He gets on a plane and he goes to China. Does he think the Chinese economy is going to buy his stuff? China is entirely an export-driven economy, right? So what did he do? He came back and said, oh, we'll take their electric cars. I mean, is this nuts?
So the attention and pressure on Canada is going to increase, which is why you saw escalation actually happen. Now, it's not Iranian escalation. It's not Chinese escalation. It's not Russian escalation. It's Canada escalation. You had the Prime Minister come yesterday. It's like a 10-minute video. It's all mental illness and stupid shit, just ripping Canadians off. Some of it pretty powerful in that he's invoking history and some heritage stuff. But here's the gist of what he said yesterday.
Many of our former strengths, based on our close ties to America, have become our weaknesses.
It's a weakness.
Weaknesses that we must correct. Workers in our industries most affected by U.S. tariffs, in autos, in steel, in lumber, are under threat. Businesses are holding back investments, restrained by the pall of uncertainty that's hanging over all of us. The U.S. has changed, and we must respond. Many of our
So it's a big failure, of course. Mark Carney decided to release another fear-mongering statement to keep the charade going. Many of our former strengths based on our close ties to America have become our weaknesses. No, Canada won the lottery being right next to the largest economy in the world and selling to them with the best trade deal in the world. The problem is that we squandered it all with red tape and lack of ambition to do anything and building anything ourselves. So we got used to thinking we could just make more money off the US, which gave us the false confidence that we can solve the world's problems with carbon tax, mass immigrating refugees, and virtue signaling. In other words, Canada became delusional, ungrateful, and complacent, and mentally ill. Here's Francis Pouliot saying, we share a 9,000-kilometer border with the greatest military empire and the richest country the world has ever seen. We've been peaceful allies with them for 200 years. We speak the same language and overall same cultures and religions. And this fucktard thinks it's a weakness. And he doesn't really think that, of course. This is all manipulation. We know he doesn't think that because he just told that the ties to the U.S. are a weakness. But if that's true, why is 91% of his personal wealth still sitting in U.S. holdings? Why are his kids at U.S. universities? Why is Diana Carney still collecting checks from U.S. corporations? If the U.S. is such a threat to Canada, lead by example, liquidate, sell the stocks, bring the kids home. You can't lecture us on independence when your family's future is built on the American economy. Now, hypocrisy doesn't work to convince people of anything because people just ignore it. But indeed, you can still see the mocking and the laughter that's going on with Carney's address. He got community noted on it as well. He said in the guidance or in the address that he developed forward guidance. So forward guidance is this idea that the 2% inflation target should be somewhat massaged over time so that you can just make up new shit in the future as a reason for which you're manipulating the inflation rate or the interest rate in their case, so that you can manipulate the inflation rate by manipulating the interest rate. So it's just this fake weapon that they have in order to say, oh, forward guidance, we have to blend the 2% over a series of months. It's complete and total scam. But that's his big claim to fame, and he got community noted for it, of course. Here, he did not develop forward guidance. It emerged from the 1950s with the Federal Reserve and was used by the Bank of Japan in 1999. So anyway, just a stupid point, but he had to go and say he developed it. But here we see from Keith Wilson, imagine having a political leader seriously suggesting we abandon trade with the largest economy in the world, our closest neighbor, lowest cost partner, and biggest customer. Canada sends 75% of its exports to the US. For Alberta, it's closer to 85 to 90%. That's not a minor relationship you can pivot away from overnight. It's the backbone of our economy. You don't strengthen a country by picking fights with your primary customer. You don't create jobs by making it harder to sell what we produce. Albertans understand this. We rely on access to US markets, and we have no interest in reckless strategies that gamble with our livelihood. Strong countries don't act out of impulse. They act in their economic self-interest. That's what an independent Alberta will do. Vote yes on October 19th. And that's why you have all these separatist movements in Canada, because of this kind of stuff. Now, the big plan for Canada, this is their big plan, guys. You want to see their big plan? They're going to have a conference, okay? He's going to have a conference. Canada to host a September summit in Toronto to help draw billions in foreign investment. It was trillions yesterday. Now it's down to billions. Canada has what the world wants, he says. That's true. But they don't want the other stuff that we have, which is red tape and all kinds of nonsense. Open economies thrive on capital flows, but long-term prosperity depends on who owns the underlying assets and where the income ultimately accrues. That's attention Canada knows well. Otherwise, you don't just integrate into the global economy, you subordinate your position with it. And that is what Mark Carney is doing here. He is actually looting and selling the country out in this instance. So separation of Canada can't come soon enough. That's why no matter what we see here, Canada falling behind in race to attract best, brightest students, Universities Canada CEO. We're falling so far behind that Carney's children are attending those universities. But you'll hear from the propagandists, of course, these same British institutions. Here's the guy, Champagne, that you just had the big Besson-Cock stick went into, which was that America is going to be looking into Canada's finances when it comes to the drug trade and all of the illicit drugs coming across the border. And here, of course, we see the IMF, just another one of these institutions, part of this whole architecture of deceit that you see falling apart as a result of the global reset that you are witnessing from Trump's actions with tariffs and everything else going on. And so, of course, IMF sees Canada's fiscal position as the strongest in the G7. Think about how retarded the IMF has to be to come out and say something like this. This is just pure propaganda. Sometimes I find Canadians don't actually realize how good we have it across the group of seven. This is, of course, a member of parliament from out in Calgary talking about this for the Liberal Party, of course, here bragging. And Bloomberg, of course, hired Chrystia Freeland. So was she the one who wrote this article? Maybe. She now is a TV host for them. So it's a Chrystia Freeland special. But here, Gad Saad saying the gaslighting exceeds even Orwell's imagination, because everybody knows that Canada is not the best positioned country in the G7. It's completely insane. This is what Canada has come to. You can realize Canada's position simply because of the amount of brainwashing that they are victims of. I've said for a long time that the thing that distinguishes Canada is that they absorb all of the American brainwashing naturally because of cultural ties, and we're just near all the American brainwashing. But there's always a Canadian targeted approach to every little bit of American brainwash. So you get the American stuff in the background, then you get the targeted Canadian brainwashing on top, which is my argument that the Canadians are the most psychologically abused people in this modern world. They're the ones who are really living under fiat fiction more than any other country, which is why Canada will be the first fiat-backed nation to die. It's going to die. And it'll die because the people have too much mental illness at this point. The amount of brainwashing that's gone on, the amount of propaganda that the Canadians are subjected to on a daily and weekly basis for decades now has amounted and piled up so much that the sludge people are drowning in it. And here's a great example. I read this the other day on the Breakup Canada show with Bitcoin Brains, but Gad Saad saying it perfectly. A degenerate liberal Canadian woman was chatting with my wife, who was telling her that I was currently at the declaration. The woman was writhing in disgusted horror that we would want to be in the United States, according to this gargantuan, hysteric imbecile. The US was indistinguishable from the worst regimes imaginable. I hear this from innumerable liberal Canadians. Imagine being so parasitized as to think this of the United States. I'm Canadian, and I proudly proclaim that the United States is the greatest country in the history of humanity. And here we're starting to see, indeed, that the mental illness in Canada, according to Gad as well, is entirely predicted by the brainwashing and the politics. Here's a graph that a lot of people have been talking about this morning. I think even Elon Musk retweeted it. Percentage of younger people diagnosed with a mental health problem in the US according to their political opinions. Strong Democrat, we're at 56% mentally ill. Weak Democrat, 41. Independent gets 35. Weak Republican gets a 30% incidence of mental health problems. A strong Republican, only 15% incidence of mental health issues. And there you go. And that's why for many years, I've been talking about this mental illness problem when it comes to money. You even had Trump yesterday actually talking about this. Here's a funny Rupar video. So Rupar, who normally clips videos to make people look bad, kind of screwed up here. Trump was asked about his mental health and depression yesterday. And here is what the president said. Let me know if the audio still comes.
It's called ibogaine treatment. Ibogaine. Remember the name? Is it pronounced notably properly? I don't want to get it wrong.
No audio. Let me start it over. So here's Trump talking about mental health, or his own mental health. Pretty good stuff.
Ibogaine, because it's so important, and experienced an 80 to 90% reduction in symptoms of depression and anxiety within 1 month. Can I have some, please? I'll take some. I'll take whatever it takes. I don't have time to be depressed. You know, if you stay busy enough, maybe that works too. That's what I do. In Texas,
so he stays busy enough, and Sightbringer has a good take on it, saying the people who are most prone to depression in modern life are often people who have time and comfort but no purpose. This is Canada. This is entirely Canada until now. The professional class with stable jobs and no deep stakes, the retired, the recently graduated, the recently divorced, the recently laid off, transition states where the structure that gave meaning has been removed and nothing has replaced it. Those are the high-risk populations, and they're high risk precisely because they have time to notice that something is missing. The modern mental health framework often treats depression as a discrete medical condition that can be addressed through medication and therapy without reference to the conditions of the person's life. Sometimes that's the right treatment. Sometimes the person's life is structured in a way that will produce depression regardless of how much medication and therapy you give them. The symptoms can be managed, but the underlying condition persists, because it's generated by the life itself, not by a disorder inside the person. Someone working a meaningless job with no relationships and no purpose is going to be depressed. That's not a disorder. That's an appropriate response to the conditions. The pathology is in the situation, not in the person. Treating the person without addressing the situation is managing symptoms while maintaining the cause. The patient gets slightly better or slightly worse, but the depression doesn't resolve because the conditions that produce it haven't changed. What Trump is describing, probably without meaning to, is that if you change the conditions, the depression often takes care of itself. Not always, but often enough that it's working, that it's worth taking seriously. The person who finds a calling, builds something meaningful, falls in love, becomes a parent, commits to a mission, often reports that their depression lifted because the conditions that generated the depression were replaced by conditions that generate engagement. The mental health industry has a financial incentive not to say this clearly because the conclusion is that the most effective intervention for a significant chunk of depression is structural life change, not billable treatment. Medication and therapy are excellent businesses. Helping someone reorient their life around something they care about is not really a business at all. It requires the person to do the work themselves. There's no pharmaceutical equivalent. This is called proof of work. This is called a feedback loop. This is called accountability. This is called many things. But indeed, your situational awareness is a big part of it. That's why I've been talking about how fiat actually creates these circumstances regularly. They create what you can think of as the beached whale effect. Now, the beached whale effect is something I stole from the biography of Marlon Brando. And it was a way to underline what happened to Brando. And it can kind of apply to Michael Jackson, but it can apply to anyone you know, old people, everyone we just heard from the story underlined by Sightbringer here, the people who have too much time on their hands, the people who don't have the accountability and the feedback loop necessary. They just live in a vacuum. So in that way, the energy that was used, like by a whale, right? When a whale is out in the ocean, it's the energy that allows the whale to conquer the oceans in the way that it does and move around and all these things. But when it's on land, that energy all turns against it. When it gets beached, all of the energy that made it so majestic at sea is what ends up killing it. And that's why geniuses, you hear this a lot about Olympic athletes becoming, or athletes in general, becoming depressed after their careers. Now, it's not just the relaxation, it's the lack of feedback loop, it's the lack of accountability. I use these Jungian frames very often to talk about this. And what this is the process of individuation. And the process of individuation begins with encountering your ego. So we all know we have a subconscious, and some people call it the collective unconscious. But there is a subconscious individually. And individually, this subconscious is bound to go bad if it doesn't have feedback, if it doesn't have encounter with your shadow, with the things that aren't going well, with the things you don't like, with the unpleasant realities. That's why brainwashing stops this encounter and this individuation, because it ignores the bad things. In the case of Canada, it's not really taking account of the troubles it's going through right now. It's turning it all into politics and more brainwashing and more propaganda. The process of individuation, which begins with encounter, merger, assimilation, is about working through these problems using accountability and feedback loops. And encounter, of course, this is why fiat has created these problems. This is why unlimited money, government money as debt, propaganda as money creates these mental health issues, because you can't actually count fiat in a real way. If you've got IMF saying that the Canadian situation is the best balance sheet in the G7, there's nothing real about that. That's not reality at all. That's fake. And that's how you end up having poor people telling you how to be rich, fat people telling you how to be healthy, unhealthy people who are doctors constantly. So encounter, and this is why Bitcoin really can produce a much more stable mental health profile for Canadians, Americans, anyone, because you can count it. It's that simple. You can have encounter, you have a feedback loop. Are you making money? Are you being successful? Is your thing working? And you're able to have this proper accountability and feedback loop, and you're able to integrate your shadow using this system. So that's why Jung developed this model. That's why this model is what a lot of people use to heal their own mental illness and to get out of a rut. You need feedback. You need to live. You need to do things. You need to encounter the real world so that your encounter with the real world can reflect and alter your inner world and your subconscious. That's how you end up getting on a road to increased mental health. That's why we have this kind of terrible mental health crisis across the political sphere in America, because you've got one side that's living off the propaganda that is fueled by the unlimited, uncountable money, which is why it's all illicit and why it's all fake and why you have all of these incredible audits going on, why you have all this more or less UBI being paid to all these welfare cases because the fraud in it is difficult to catch. And the answer to fraud always is, if no one is looking, you're going to have unlimited fraud. When you can't even count the amount of money that's out there, you're going to have the type of fraud and mental illness that comes along with it. I mean, just look at how delusional Canada really is, right? When we see Canada being accused of being ungrateful and mentally ill, just remember just last week, right? You had Canada hitching a ride on the Americans' new moon rocket, right? And immediately bitch about how their ties to the United States is a weakness. It's the nation state equivalent of Jaden Smith. Isn't it the nation state equivalent of Jaden Smith? That's Will Smith's kid. This is just the height of mental illness, the height of the type of mental illness we heard from Sightbringer earlier. This is how you can get into that position of being such a sludge person. Imagine you're a sludge person to this level. Imagine your level of sludge personness, like in Canada, goes to the point where you can get the Prime Minister yesterday saying that our strength that used to be the tie to America is now our weakness. Do you think Canada was going to be able to put anyone on the moon last week? You think we can put anyone in Canada on the moon in like a year or 10 years, right? In the United States, not only do they have people going on the moon, they got people taking pictures like this with their iPhones. This is the Earth set. This is the Earth setting as recorded on someone's iPhone. Look at this. I mean, this is last week. This is last week, and a Canadian is on that space rocket. Why? Because Canada is good at stuff? Nope. They just let us in. We do a few things. We share some costs. We built that arm thing. Great, right? This is what America has going on. This is the second private company that's landed a rocket on a platform. This is not Starlink or SpaceX that's landing the rockets. This here is Blue Origin and Jeff Bezos' rocket company, who's now able to land their rockets too. No one else in the world can do it except for the Americans, and it's two private companies that are capable of doing this. So when you think about all the mental illness in Canada, when you think about what's going on with these fights and with the lack of gratitude, right, you can see why America is pulling ahead and why the mental health and optimism is there. And what did I tell you was going to happen around the time the Iranian war wound down? I said you'd see Trump pivot hard in his messaging towards not crying about our strengths, a dark and divided world like Mark Carney, all of this nonsense. Come to my conference in September. He's going to fix Canada in September with his $1 trillion conference where he's just selling the country to people. It's just basically a yard sale for Canada. And so what is Trump doing now? He's leaning into his golden age type messaging. This is exactly what I said. Trump here puts this on Truth Social yesterday. In America, we don't fear the future, we invent the future. So you're seeing the two planks, and this is what I think Trump is going to be doing from basically now into the midterms. He'll have a little fun playing with Canada and a few other scams. When things are really clear, he's going to weigh in, but he's going to be doing a lot more of this.
America is ending the threat posed by this radical regime, decimating Iran's capabilities with Operation Epic Fury, something that nobody's ever seen anything quite like it. We have the most powerful military in the world. In the meantime, the conflict in Iran also makes it absolutely vital for the radical left Democrats in Congress to immediately end their dangerous shutdown of our Department of Homeland Security. For 42 days, they've tried to completely eliminate funding for the number one duty of government, which is keeping America safe. They want to have our borders be open again. Over the past 14 months, the Trump administration has achieved perhaps the most dramatic one-year turnaround of any nation in all of history. Our country is prospering again. Our economy is booming again, and America is respected again all over the world, perhaps like never before. And in America, we don't fear the future, we invent the future.
So as I said, you're going to see him more and more and more pivoting to this point of view. And here's how the Canadian mental illness has to play out. Now, you think about all the golden age type of frames that Trump is going to use from now until the midterms, right? And you can see here that the Canadian response, like a lot of the lefty NGOs, sludge people response, is to assume Trump's going to lose the midterms. They're all holding out for the midterms. So here you get the CBC and their creepy host coming out, and he's talking here with that semaphore guy you heard interviewing Lutnick on the stage for that semaphore event. Now, I'm no fan of semaphore. This was a heavily funded by Sam Bankman-Fried organization. So you got to be careful who you're dealing with here. But listen to this encounter. Listen to how delusional Canadians really are, now out of touch they are. This is Canadians absolutely assuming that Trump is toast in the midterms because he's losing his power.
I believe that was Steve Verhoeven, right? Who is kind of a well-known figure, an extremely well-known and well-respected figure in Canadian trade negotiations. But doesn't Mr. Verhoeven have a point? Like, when you look at what is happening with prices in the U.S. Consumer markets, when you look at what is happening with the MAGA base, with a lot of things, and with the midterms coming, that things may get more politically difficult for the Trump administration as 2026 rolls along.
Yeah, I mean, Trump is in obviously real political trouble, and I think widely viewed as expected to lose the House in the midterms, likely to lose the Senate, but Trump does not treat Congress as that important an actor, and Congress is not that centrally involved in foreign relations. And I think people may overestimate the extent to which a big defeat in the midterms is going to change Trump's trade strategy, his style, the way he approaches other countries.
Right, but he's largely done so many things by executive order, right? Even on trade, on any number of things. He's had the Supreme Court setback. If he does lose Congress, if he does lose the Senate, he can be distracted by investigations. Who knows? Any number of things. I mean, what is your sense of the strength he still has to sort of the command the Liberation Day tariff agenda from a year ago?
He's laughing at the Liberation Day.
Yeah, I think the presidency is a very powerful job, and Trump is not. He's not up for re-election. He's not. He's not acting like he cares that much whether he is popular. Like, he's really done almost everything he could this year to destroy his party, his prospects of winning the midterms, and doesn't seem particularly bothered by it. This war is honestly, however it comes out for the U.S., which is unpredictable in the Gulf. It's a political disaster at home. It's splintered his coalition. It's dragged his numbers to new lows. I think he is trying to reorder the U.S. and the world with an eye to his legacy.
So it's not going to work because he's moving against people who are going to sell you mental illness versus him selling you optimism. You're already seeing this trend in the United States and the split, which is why I continue to predict that anyone who thinks that Trump is going to lose, he's in big trouble in the midterms, just think of the amount of stories and change we're going to have between now and then, and the amount of optimism and bullish stories in the future that Trump's going to be selling versus the mental illness you're going to get from the other side, from the fearmongers, from the Mark Carneys. And you see it here. James Carville, last week he said, don't tell them your plan. And then he jumps on and tells everyone his plan, right? Top Democrat political consultant and campaign strategist James Carville just stated on the left-wing Polycon podcast that when the Democrats regain power, they plan to grant statehood to D.C. and Puerto Rico, so that Democrats can unlock 4 extra seats in the Senate, pack the U.S. Supreme Court from 9 justices to 13, adding another 4 left-wing justices, reopen the U.S.-Mexico border, and grant mass amnesty to every single alien currently inside the United States. His advice to Democrat politicians: don't run it. Don't talk about it. Just do it. And how do you think that's going to go, right? Meanwhile, the right forces itself into a straitjacket of norms, deliberately oblivious to what is coming for them. But people know what's coming for them. You can even see here who we're dealing with. This is the type of mental illness breakdown people that we're dealing with here. What do you think is going to work? Golden age or this?
Look, you fat fuck Trump, if you listen to this, you listen good, because what I'm getting ready to say is what a lot of people in this country speak for, who I speak for. And I speak for a lot of fucking people. You hear me, you fat asshole? This is what we believe. You're right. I got Trump derangement syndrome. I hate the motherfucker. And you know what? I don't want to get rid of it. I don't want to get better. I want to get worse. I want to hate him more. I pray to God in heaven, God reign the righteous reign of Trump derangement syndrome. Pray for me, Lord. I'm your vessel on this earth. Pray for the people that listen to this. We want more. We want to hate the son of a bitch so much that we can't see straight. Look, you fat.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So that's why you see them out there. They all go now this weekend because it's all just fake politics, right? So they all go to Barcelona for a big socialist conference. Here you see the guy from Connecticut. I'm in Barcelona today to help unite progressive parties from around the world in a defense of democracy and a war against corruption. Their war against corruption. And necessary to beat back the forces of fascism. Richard Grinnell says many of these groups are fascist, anti-American, and communist. Attending this event as a U.S. senator while bashing America is very concerning to me. This was an error in judgment to legitimize these groups. The U.S. media have a responsibility to show America who these groups are, and it's not really going to work. So we saw the Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez come out, right? The right and the extreme right, and oppose his regularization of 500,000 migrants. We are the children of migration in Spain. We will not be the parents of xenophobia. We are proud to be on the right side of history. And none of this stuff is going to work. It's all a zero. We, of course, saw the Soros is there. Communist Global Progressive Mobilization Summit. Here's Soros in Barcelona this weekend with all these folks. There he is with Sanchez. There he is with my prime minister in Barbados, Mia Motley, hanging out. So there he is. What do you think this is going to do to persuade people? So the funniest part, though, is that indeed this fight is global, right? We're seeing Trump and what he's done and creating this global division. And again, why we're going to see everything turn into communism versus Bitcoin and the different incentives around each of these systems and the mental health, the different mental health around this. So this event happened in Barcelona, as I said. Now compare it to this event, which happened in Madrid, Spain. So it wasn't the only big political rally. Here you had the Venezuelan prime minister in waiting, or president in waiting, I'm not sure, the one who likes Bitcoin and offered her reward to Trump. Here she is. Wow. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Machado walked out to a sea of thousands of supporters in Madrid. Machado had dedicated her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump. She is refusing to meet with Spain's leftist Pedro Sanchez right now, instead meeting with the right-wing opposition. So you're seeing the Bitcoiner here move into this direction, which is why the fault lines in this fight are going the way they are. Here's how many people came. 350,000 people gathered in Madrid for a pro-Trump, anti-communist Venezuelan opposition leader, Machado. This is what total annihilation of communism looks like. So while they had their communist meeting in Barcelona, this was going on in Madrid. And I think this is the actual frame you're going to see going forward. You even had Rand Paul trying to defend the Venezuelan situation, or trying to say it was bad for America to have done the Venezuelan black bag of what's his shit, whatever his name is. No audio. Jeez Louise. Anyway, I'll just skip ahead. How does it fail? Sometimes it works, sometimes it fails. Who knows? Nobody knows.
Under our laws, look, Bolsonaro says that Da Silva is not really the president of Brazil. Our president said Biden wasn't really the president. Hillary Clinton said in 2016 Trump wasn't the president. So you have these arguments, and I agree with you. It probably was, and most likely was, most assuredly was a bad election. He wasn't really elected. But at the same time, if that's our predicate, and you don't have to come to us because it's a drug bust, we're just removing somebody, you can see where it leads to, and it leads to chaos. And that's why we have rules like the Constitution, so we don't get so far.
Things are going so great, Rand. They're just going great. They're just going great.
And I would argue for 7
Everyone's
years
loving
we're
it.
going the wrong way. It isn't just this president, but it's a debate that I think is worth having.
The Constitution. Way to go, Rand. Keep defending the Constitution. So indeed, where all of this mental illness comes from, again, why I say the propaganda, when you have government money as the government debt as the money in the system, you need the nodes to be propagandistic, which is exactly why Trump hitting the nodes in Iran is changing the world. It's changing the propaganda. And you've seen it time and time again. Bukele knew about it a long time ago. And that's why we're getting these people caught in these vices. Here is a video that Bukele tweeted out this weekend about the NGOs saying that they love the terrorists and gangsters and criminals in El Salvador. And in fact, they want their rights acknowledged and they want them to be released from their security prison in El Salvador because they're human rights. And here you see Bukele going after the propagandists. And that's the important part here, because it's the propaganda that has allowed for this to happen in the first place. That's why the order of things that I predicted Trump going to golden age rhetoric now in the summer of the 250th anniversary of the United States followed a string of predictions that I made. I said the first things you'd see in this administration was the action he took against the NGOs and USAID and where the propaganda comes from. I said then he would move into the actual kinetic part of reordering the world with some war and some change and some regime change type stuff, because that's where the actual power was being rediverted and the money was being rediverted. And now he'll come home and do his domestic agenda. So going back to the first action that Trump took against the propagandists, because you could have never gotten this far in the war with Iran if the propagandists were still powerful. So you took the propagandists out, then you went to war. And now you're going to get to come home and do the domestic story and sell the golden age to the American people for the next few months with a little side of accountability and some space drops, hopefully. Bukele here talking about the same thing that we've heard from Trump many times. A week ago, a group of experts and expert women funded by Open Society, Soros, went to IACHR and the UN to basically demand the release of 100% of the gang members arrested during the state of exception. These videos were seen by the Salvadorian people, which generated strong rejection toward all the NGOs, journalists, and politicians who support the report. It was a public relations disaster for the organizations supposedly defending human rights. However, upon seeing the reaction and being questioned by the people, their excuse was that they weren't defending terrorists, but supposed innocents. So they decided to try again. This time before the United States Congress. The plan was to present the government of El Salvador as a human rights violator. However, it backfired even worse when they were directly asked if they agreed that MS-13 is a terrorist organization. They couldn't respond, and then they claimed that regardless of the crimes committed, that they were there to defend the rights of these people. Watch the video, see clearly how they defend terrorists, see how they say that even if they committed horrible crimes, they are there to defend their rights. I'm not saying it. They say it themselves with their own words in the US Congress. Don't let them fool you. They're not defending supposed innocents. They're defending terrorists. They're saying that MS-13 is not a terrorist organization and that no matter their offenses, they will still defend their rights. Let there be no doubt. What these supposed journalists, human rights defense organizations, and national and foreign politicians who support them are seeking is the release of these criminals so they can return to subjecting the Salvadorian people to their reign of terror and turn us back into the most dangerous country in the world. But they shoot themselves in the foot again. Watch the video and judge for yourselves. And indeed, you can watch the video on your own. You can see yourself what's going on here. And indeed, that is the story that I'm reporting on here every day, that we're dealing with propaganda. We're dealing with nodes in a system where government debt is the money. Therefore, the propaganda is required, which is spreading the mental illness throughout the system, which is creating corruption, which is why all the audits are a big part of the story, which is why audits are the natural corollary to selling the golden age, because the golden age is about building and putting this old system to bed. Is about showing just how fucked to death and robbed and stolen and fraudulent it all is. So we saw this weekend Nick Shirley just do some really great, hilarious theater. He's one of the best Trump theater guys you're going to find. He went and just ran up against every single one of the people that are creating the Nick Shirley, Stop Nick Shirley Act, which is the thing where they don't want you doing anymore, looking into the looking into the fraud. So this is the hospice stuff. This is obviously not going to work, but just look at the different aura. Look at the different power you're starting to see. Look at how weak and stupid these politicians are looking every single day. And someone like Nick Shirley coming out of this with just nonstop victory, nonstop winning. He did this all weekend long. I have multiple videos like this of him going up, and watch how stupid they are. Look at them try to run away. These are all the politicians in the California state legislature that are trying to enact the Stop Nick Shirley bill, which would keep anyone from finding out about the fraud. But obviously it's not going to work, right?
You guys would pass this bill that really is an attack on free speech.
I am not even sure what you're talking about.
Really?
You said an author. I don't think.
Yes.
I'm an
Did you
author.
pass on? Did you sign to pass this bill? The AB 26?
No, I don't
24?
know what you're talking about.
Speaker Rivas, how are you doing? What do you think about the Stop Nick Shirley Act? AB 2624.
I don't know anything about it.
You're a co-author of the Stop Nick Shirley Act. Oh, you know who I am. My name's Nick Shirley, ma'am.
No,
you signed off on the AB 2624 Act. Can you tell us about what you did on that?
I don't even know who you are.
Well, my
Are you a
name's Nick
blogger?
Shirley. But so what do you think about the Stop Nick Shirley Act, AB 2624? You don't know much about it? Or?
I don't know if I know that.
Oh, well, can I tell you a little bit about it?
I'm okay.
So you should know. You should know about it though, because it's kind of your job. Super important. People have a lot of questions about the AB 2624 Act.
So this bill,
aka the Stop Nick Shirley Act. Tell us about it.
well, there is no Stop Nick Shirley Act, but the author's not here today, but I hope you can find her.
But you're the co-author of this.
I'm a co-author of many, many bills that protect vulnerable communities in California.
Good, so you should know a lot about this bill. For instance, it
Hold on.
shields immigration.
Hold on one. Hey.
I hate to disrupt the phone call. This is important. Wait, come on. Look at that. These guys really just don't want to answer any of the questions.
So he spent the whole weekend doing this. He had all kinds of great takes, right? Here's same thing. They're all complicit in defending the fraud. What's more entertaining, right? He followed all these people, just really powerful and hilarious stuff, right? Followed California Speaker to the House and Senator for pushing the Stop Nick Shirley Act, which criminalizes anti-fraud journalism. They were stumbling, panicked, and refused to acknowledge that levying up to 50,000 U.S. trash token fines for journalism is tyranny. So none of it worked, right? Here's another video of Shirley getting this person. These are a lot of fun, a lot of fun.
The bill AB 2624, why would you sign off on that? It's a direct violation of the First Amendment, and it makes it harder for people to expose fraud here.
We have Ledge Council. They check the constitutionality of all our bills as we're writing them. I work on fraud issues. You'd know that if you look at some of the work I did on the budget subcommittee.
Amazing. So Mia Bonta, her husband's the Attorney General of the Attorney General of California, and it was only until I exposed fraud that they actually cracked down on the fraud and made some arrests here, especially with the hospices. And do you know that if this bill were to pass, it'd make it illegal for someone to go after fraud, especially if it's based off of immigrants, for instance, the Armenians in California?
No, I think that that's a misinterpretation of the bill, but I'm happy to talk with you more about it. And
Don't you
Fraud and
worry.
investigations into fraud are something that's been happening for a very long time. The Attorney General handles those cases.
You
This
think
is
it's
an
a little
ongoing
weird
issue.
that the wife of the Attorney General, Mia Bonta, is now pushing this bill that literally goes against the First Amendment?
No, I actually don't. I don't think that this bill violates the First Amendment. I mean,
Really?
that's the whole purpose. We have ledge counsel and ledge attorneys that talk with us about this.
They have
Constitutionality is
counsels. They've
really
got ledge
So your
attorneys.
bill criminalizes publication of images recorded in public. Do you believe the government has the right to punish journalists for filming in public space?
No, I think that is a complete misinterpretation of actually the
No, because
piece of legislation.
that is not. That's literally what would happen. Speaker Rivas.
So none of them can stop it. It's too entertaining. The kayfabe is too high. Their answers are too stupid. And not only that, you've got Spencer Pratt on the prowl as well. Here's Spencer Pratt with a great new investigation into all the incredible corruption at the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Again, this is just another example here. Listen to what's going on in LA and why Spencer Pratt is in that same vein as Nick Shirley and creating an argument that will help root out fraud through entertainment, but also show just how corrupted these systems really are.
Look at all that water. You know the LADWP has a combined water and power budget of $11 billion, but where's all that money going? As of 2023, over 100 LADWP employees earned an annual compensation of over $500,000 each. 27 LADWP employees earn more than $600,000 per year, and 4 top-level LADWP employees earn more than $700,000 a year. But somehow these highly paid individuals couldn't find the funds to repair a $140,000 tear in the Santa Ynez Reservoir or get the Palisades Reservoir in Chautauqua online, despite being paid millions upon millions of dollars. The top level employees at the LADWP failed to do their basic job. At this point, we shouldn't be surprised. It's just like Newsom and all his friends and the nonprofits and the NGOs. They blow all the budget and the salaries, and there's nothing left to accomplish the actual task at hand, like having water for the town that didn't need to burn down.
So indeed, while you got Spencer Pratt doing that, you've got Karen Bass with her radical 14-point climate plan. She's got a 14-point climate plan, guys. Here she is. This is the plan. She says that they're gonna a brand new climate plan Thursday. So they burnt their whole city down. They stopped emissions, I think, in their city once the fire came down because people weren't really living there anymore. So that was a win. The sweeping blueprint is supposed to slash emissions, expand renewable energy, and reshape how Angelenos live, travel, and use water. She claimed Los Angeles would be carbon neutral by 2045, double local solar production. I mean, they should have a lot of solar. That's true. So more scams, more of the same, and it will not match up with what's going on with all of these incredible audits. I mean, just look what's happening over in Minnesota. Minnesota watched a Somali man walk free after a jury convicted him of stealing 7.2 million US trash tokens in taxpayer money. The jury said the evidence was overwhelming. The jury erased the verdict anyway. If unanimous conviction can be overturned, justice is dead. Look at this. Absolutely unreal. And why you're going to see the appetite for change continue to go up, 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 up. Literally every time now, I guess. Okay, I'll just keep doing it every time. Anyway, you don't need to hear the audio on this one. It's not that important. Blah, 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 fraud. They didn't they didn't convict and they let them go. So, but you're going to see it's going to continue. It's just equal and opposite reactions. What you're going to get from all this denial of fraud is just more looking at the courts and how corrupt they are, and just continuing to look into the rot. Here, you're already seeing, this is the New Wall Street Journal exclusive. Ilhan Omar says she isn't a multimillionaire. She filed documents with Congress saying her wealth was between 6 million and 30 million. Whoops. It turns out it's actually between 18,000 and 95,000. Whoops. What happened? So this is just going to get better and better and better and more entertaining. And that's what you want to see, is you want to be entertained by this stuff. It's the only way. And again, go to where the political fault lines are changing with all this fraud, even the political stuff. And you're seeing folks like Bill Maher starting to change their tune. You're even seeing Democrats changing their tune, which is why I don't think this hold on for the Democrats to win the midterm thing is going to work, because you're going to see entirely new narratives between now and then. It isn't going to stop. Here is Jake Sullivan trying to make his case with Bill Maher, and you're starting to see why the political conversation is not going to stay left-right in America the way we've understood it until now. Democrat, Republican changing more and more, and why I think you're going to see a complete and total shift in the political conversation between communism and Bitcoin, really between mental illness and mentally healthy people, which is probably the right answer, and the way we're going to get out of this trouble, and the way we can predict what's going to happen in the midterm. So I've got two videos here of Bill Maher punching back against Democrats to explain and help support my prediction of what's going to happen in the next few weeks.
The Senate rejected a measure to block the sale of military equipment to Israel. I wouldn't know what that means unless I stopped and thought about it. What it means is this is a Democratic idea. This is Bernie Sanders. This is the Democrats wanting to stop, and this is not charity to Israel. This is the sale of military equipment. This is the Democrats saying we're not going to sell Israel any more military equipment. 7 Democrats joined the Republicans in shooting this down. So Israel has 7 Democratic allies left in the Senate.
Well, first of all, it's not just Bernie Sanders. As you note, it's 40 Democrats who voted for this. And basically
That's
what
right.
they said
only 7 allies.
Was pretty straightforward. And I talked to a number of them before the vote. I think they did the right thing. Why? Because the President of the United States,
right thing?
Those 40 Democrats.
The 40?
Yeah, because the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Israel brought the United States into a war that basically was misbegotten from the beginning, which cost American credibility, cost American lives, and cost American families at the gas pump. And basically those Democrats shouldn't vote for anything that supports that war, including more weapons to Israel. I think that's just a basic proposition. If you are not wanting to support the U.S. and Israel continuing the war in Iran, you shouldn't be voting to send more weapons to Israel. I think that is the right approach for those 40 Democrats to take.
Well, I see why Biden lost.
I see why Biden lost. Here's Rahm Emanuel predicting what's about to happen to the Democrats as well. I'll share this and share it from scratch because audio, blah, blah, blah.
The Democratic Party, taking 2024, going back to 2020, invited a bunch of cultural wars into our kids' schools, and we lost that war. I mean, here in California, up in San Francisco, they were arguing and voted to take Abraham Lincoln's name off of a high school. Not whether they were worried about whether the kids know why Abraham Lincoln was such an icon and the school was named after him. They lost the plot. They totally lost the plot, and they lost the American people in that plot. And when you're going to make a mistake, I'm going to call it out, your consequence for that. The cultural wars was a mistake. One thing the American people want from us is when their backs are up against the wall, they want us to show up and help them, not argue about Latinx as a term, not argue about defunding the police or, in some situations, or more importantly, letting the border get out of control. We actually have to show respect for the American people, their primary concerns, and help them. As I jokingly say, you know, they weren't very good in the family room, not very good in the kitchen. The only room we were good in was the bathroom, and it's the smallest room in the house. It's nuts.
Right.
A good line. Whether you like him or not, it was a good line. And That's why when you look at the plan going forward, the stealing of the election, here you got Tim Kaine saying, yeah, we got to vote in Virginia to do the gerrymander thing, because if we don't break democracy, then Trump will be a autocrat. And so here Kaine just admitted the quiet part out loud on TV. And here he says 90% of Indians are not Democrats. That's true. But we need a congressional delegation that will stand up to Donald Trump's tyranny. He literally just admitted it on camera. Not about representing Virginians, not about fair maps, not about democracy. It's about rigging the system to create a permanent resistance squad against the guy who just won the White House, Virginia. This is your cue. And anyway, who knows about what's going to happen with Virginia? But just watching all of these stories compound and watching why you end up with mental illness. I mean, this is exactly why. Ilhan Omar, all of these people who are telling you that the Democrats can win, that it's all Trump's losing. It's all just the lack of accountability. Everything that happens when your brain is on a fiat standard, and just like there's a never-ending amount of money, there's a never-ending amount of bullshit, because the money pays for the bullshit. And so when you have fiat currency and you've got all of this incredible amount of propaganda getting fueled and funded, it's just increasing the amount of mental illness out there. Tim Kaine is making people mentally ill. This is causing mental illness. And people are going to believe this. People are going to say, I don't care about democracy. I'm going to do whatever I can to stop Trump because he's going to stop democracy. And that's how you end up in this situation. It's all just insane and stupid. Meanwhile, here, just look at the fight they're up against, right? All this talk about mental illness. And I've got a video here of Joe Rogan talking about how Trump is actually solving mental illness troubles, actually getting to work on mental illness by looking at some of the drugs like psilocybin and other things that are proven to help people with real mental illness coming back from war zones, PTSD, and stuff like that. So here is Joe Rogan talking about Trump's incredible skills being used to help mental illness in America.
I want to tell everybody how this happened. I sent President Trump some information. We have a gigantic opiate problem in this country, obviously. In 2024, more than 80,000 people died of overdoses. It's a horrible number. And there's more than 5 million people that are addicted to opiates right now in this country. With one dose of Ibogaine, more than 80% of people are free of that addiction. With 2 doses, it's more than 90%. I sent him that information. The text message came back, sounds great. Do you want FDA approval? Let's do it. It was literally that quick. These drugs are illegal not because they're harmful. They're illegal because of the 1970 Controlled Substances Act that was passed by the Richard Nixon administration. They did it to target the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement. It's not because these drugs harm people. And for 56 years, we've lived under those terrible conditions. We're free of that now. We're free of that now. Thanks to all these people that we see next to me, and thanks to President Trump.
So a lot better than Tim Kaine going out and telling you to vote in a election for gerrymandering, because nothing beats stopping democracy like yourself stopping democracy. Here's Tulsi Gabbard saying the same thing. Many thanks to President Trump for bringing common sense action to the issue of psychedelics. Too many of my friends I deployed with have come home with visible wounds, and when seeking help are given bags of prescription drugs by the VA to try and numb the pain, only to make things worse. Friends of mine, like Medal of Honor recipient Dakota Mayer, have shared how receiving treatment with psychedelics has been nothing short of life-changing and life-saving. At this point, there's no denying, according to Zelia Banks, Trump is the best president in American history. Nobody even compares. I don't want to hear any soft titty bullshit. Trump is the man. Good point. Good point. And as all this is going on, I can tell you this is how Trump is going to lean into mental health. It's about staying busy. It's about being active, not sitting and ruminating on politics and what's going to happen in the midterms. America is in the middle of a stealth manufacturing boom. Factory jobs are down, but factory output has risen briskly. Credit goes not to tariffs, but to the most basic economic force of all, demand. It is happening. The most remarkable pattern is showing up in our high frequency freight data for the first time since we launched in 2018. The center of the country, the Rust Belt and the industrial heartland, is no longer just recipients of freight imports, but actual producers of freight, thanks to the surge in American manufacturing. This is a mental health upgrade to one of the areas most hard hit by the opioid crisis, by the incredible mental illness troubles that we've got from the fiat fiasco. And so just great news all around that this is happening. And from there, of course, you're going to see Trump lean into this golden age talking point. You're going to see him lean into rebuilding the country and rebuilding the capacity and rebuilding the mental health. The mental health is what it's all about. And so from here on out, it's nothing but mental health due to economic expansion. Trump is going to lean into even more positive talking points all about the golden age. You're going to hear tons of this from now until the midterms. The only other thing you're going to hear about along with that is a little bit of Canada just for fun. That's as far into foreign affairs as I think you're going to get after the Trump Xi deal is announced next week, or in 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, I guess, when he's out there. So the only other storyline you're going to get are more of these audits and more of this season of accountability. So domestic agenda is going full speed ahead. You're going to see more of this kind of stuff. The Trump DOJ has already discovered 350,000 dead people on voter rolls as 29 states hide their voter rolls. And that's Harmeet Dillon talking about her incredible work. I think that is going to pay dividends in the future. And again, you're seeing Kash Patel, the drunkard, coming out, talking about my favorite subject, all the rooms they hid from the world. There's all these rooms every couple of weeks, right? Oh, we found a room. You wouldn't believe what's in the room. It's proof. And of course, this is what I mean about kayfabe and wrestling storylines. You're going to see more and more of these stories. They're going to find more rooms. There's going to be more rooms. You can tell Trump has his finger on the pulse of the narrative. It was WrestleMania this weekend, I guess, right? We were in WrestleMania over the weekend. And this is more teeing up the political WrestleMania. All the evidence we need, rooms. I love the rooms. It's so good. And indeed, why I think it's all headed now, bringing everything back. Apparently, all of this nuclear dust that Trump is after is related to all of this, and it's related to this whole conversation. So the domestic accountability is now going to get tied in with the Iran story as well. Those threads are about to come together. Iran is about Obama and Clinton. The oil, global reset, leverage over NATO/China. Those were just added bonuses. This entire military operation in Iran has been about destroying Iran's nuclear program and proving that the Obama administration is responsible for it. That's why Trump repeatedly says the nuclear dust is the number one most important thing in negotiations. He doesn't just want Iran to sign a deal not to make nukes. He wants the uranium from Fordo so the U.S. military can use nuclear forensics to confirm the origins of all the uranium. U.S. military intelligence knows exactly where it came from, and they are just there to confirm what they already know. Trump is in Iran to gather incontrovertible evidence, isotopic signatures, nuclear fingerprints. This is why all propaganda assets have been deployed, why both the left and woke right squeal so loudly about Iran, and why there is so much disinformation online about the situation in Iran. Trump is about to secure the smoking gun that will take down the Obama administration, hence why the traitors are in such panic. It's happening, and they know they can't do anything to stop it. So this is what you got in store for the next few weeks. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're even probably going to get a special viewing of Mike Pence getting caught up in this disgraced former VP. Mike Pence implicated in John Bolton's classified documents case. Reports claim Pence was the notorious White House leaker. During Trump's first term, communications allegedly show Pence and Bolton coordinating leaks of highly sensitive material to sabotage the administration. Pence now under serious federal investigation, Espionage Act charges possible. The greatest traitor finally facing consequences. I think so, folks. That is what is up. It's going to be a lot of fun indeed. As Fiat Apocalypse says, time to eat a reality sandwich. That is what is up with these folks. They're going to get a reality sandwich indeed. Johnny Midas, unfortunately, I live in this state, stunningly beautiful, run by communist ideology. Not much more. That should go away. Remembering Scott on this 420. Yes, indeed. Bitcoin Jesus. Thanks for that. Bitcoin Jesus. I appreciate that call out. Indeed, Scott's one of his days. He loved it today. So indeed, 420 for Scott. That is what is up. A lot of lefties try to be vegetarian, and I definitely was highly emotional trying to live without meat when I was younger. Flipping the food pyramid is probably going to improve school food a lot. I think you're right. Hi, Shy Lathiel, indeed. Typical boomer answer, just stay busy. Just stay busy. Well, it's probably true. Eat well, too. Exercise. Lift weights. There's a bit more to it. What are folks over there? Let's turn California red again, indeed. Hey, happy 420, Scott, indeed. Most fun ever. I have a fever for Bitcoin. I need no cure. Ketamine is also miraculously cure as end alcoholic addiction in one single dose. I kid you not. I witnessed this occur. Yeah, I've known some ketamine doctors, actually. I met one of them at Bitcoin 2024. I had a nice chat with really healthy looking guys that ran a clinic in Miami, and you had to go there to their clinic to take it under their supervision and everything. So it was all above board and legit, and none of these crazy things. But indeed, ketamine is very good to treat PTSD. Mushroom, yeah. So these guys had a lot of interesting things to say. There were no alcohol type folks too. Really, you can tell people were just healthy, healthy looking folks. And so I was at a private party and chatted with them, and we had a nice chat, and it was good. I learned a lot about ketamine that day. I've never tried it. I'm happy with my mental health. I don't need to optimize or anything like that. I'm like Trump. We're doing fine. I got the kid. I'm not in this I'm not busy enough world. I'm very busy. So we like being busy. We get a lot of meaning out of running this World War anti-propaganda channel and spending time with you all and out of our family, and being part of something like Bitcoin has been a privilege of a lifetime. I would say I've been there to see the entire story of Bitcoin pretty much from the beginning when it went on the world stage. There was a Bitcoin before me, so I will never refer to myself as a Bitcoin OG. I don't correct people when they do refer to me as an OG, but anyone who comes even from my era knows that there was a whole bunch of people way before me, and a lot of seats on the OG table were kind of taken already. Let's put it that way. So there was, from the OGs, I wouldn't consider myself one, but I have been working for Bitcoin for 13 years now, since 2013. I've been mentally a Bitcoiner since that long. So it's an important distinction, and I would say it's been just great. I mean, I loved my life before too, don't get me wrong, but it's been, just the privilege of a lifetime. And I think the thing work-wise I'll be most proud of when I get older, and will probably never allow me to fall into a type of depression, in the sense that just being a part of this mission would be like being successful. I'll think of the Bitcoiners as the D-Day operation of World War III. If it wasn't for us, probably we're nowhere in this fight. Trump is probably succumbing right now to the brainwashing and market manipulations that would only be possible if Bitcoin wasn't a part of the equation. But it is, and so we're winning, and so we love it. Most fun ever, indeed. Indeed. Same here, Nolan. When I was younger, well, shits, yeah, I would. Yeah, exactly. Peacemakers who sow peace raise a harvest of righteousness. That's what we won. Sun, steel, sake equals happy. You got it. All right, folks. That is what I got. I'm going to have some fish for lunch, actually. We're doing fish. So no steak for lunch, but probably soon. But I thawed the fish and the kids wanted it, so that's what we're doing. So I'm going to go make some fish. I hope you all have a great day. 420. Remember, Scott is what people are saying. We love Scott. I love my life. Awaken 2026. That's how I think about love, peace, mission in El Salvador. Indeed, Chef Zero. Great episode today, Nolan. Thanks, Jack2K. All right, everyone. I'm about to play the logo followed by the thanks for watching screen. I just want to say thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I'm just telling the producer we're cutting. So there you go, guys. See you all tomorrow. Peace out.